Hi, guys. My name is Tanya Johnson, and I'm a former senior at Mercer University. Today, I'm presenting prisoners of war within the Iraq War. And my main question here that I wanted to explore was, should the concept or rule of prisoners of war exist? With that being said, I will begin informing you of the causes of the Iraq War and how it relates to prisoners of war. The Iraq War. In 2003, the United States and coalition forces initiated war on Iraq. George W. Bush denounced American and coalition forces were supposedly free and its people, the Americans, and to defend the world from grave danger. The events that led up to the Iraq War was mainly the 9/11 attack, global terrorism, the weapons at its disposal, and a new era of transitional asymmetrical war waged by non-state actors, and which was the major concerns behind the invasion of Iraq. Due to the cause of the Iraq War, some Americans and mainly Bush got the impression dictator Saddam Hussein possessed or was in the process of building the weapons of mass destruction. According to the Studies and Council on Foreign Relations, questions of Iraq linked to terrorism grew more urgent with Saddam's suspected determination to develop weapons of mass destruction, which Bush administration officials feared he might share with terrorists who could launch devastating attacks against the United States. Saddam was basically seen as a threatening visual enemy. The Iraq War, to be continued. According to the Iraq conflict, 23 American prisoners of war captured by Iraqi forces during Operation Desert Storm, including 2 U.S. servicewomen, were tortured or abused by their captors. Iraqi captors used threats of death, graphic threats of dismemberment, beatings, and or electric shock against American basic protecting prisoners of war. During the Iraq War, Iraqi interrogators perforated eardrums and threatened to shoot or dismember the American prisoners in their custody, which clearly violates the perception and standards of prisoners of war. Next up is basically some images shown here of prisoners of war. And on the right hand side, you see some people with their ribs showing. Basically look like they have not eaten at all. Yes, this is what really occurs during wartime. Prisoners are not fed, mistreated, some beaten harshly and end up with harsh cruel wounds on their body. Some even beaten to death. And this is what actually occurred during wartime. And this is why there's the concept, and the standards of prisoners of war's rules should never exist at all in war. And I will actually get to that notion later on throughout the presentation. But yes, here are some images that are very disheartening. Okay, so the real prisoners of war. In Part 2 of Article 2 in Geneva Conventions, there is this rule, general protection of prisoners of war. Article 12 expresses how prisoners of war may only be transferred by the detaining power to a power which is a party to the convention, and after the detaining power has satisfied itself of the willingness and ability of such transferee power to apply the convention. When prisoners of war are transferred under such circumstances, responsibility for the application of the convention rests on the power accepting them while they are in its custody. So therefore, the defendant under any circumstances supposed to have full responsibility of protection for prisoners of war. Obviously, this concept is not applied to some prisoners during, this concept does not apply to some soldiers during wartime because clearly standards are violated, whether it's within the Geneva Convention, humanitarian law, or international law. Some prisoners basically go against these notions and standards. Reasons why the concept prisoners of war exists. Treating the opponent's side as your own. Of course, there will always be wars occurring throughout the nation, but certain rules and regulations must be followed during wartime. Pose, protecting prisoners of war, must be treated humanly in all circumstances. They are protected against any act of violence, as well as against intimidation, insults, and public curiosity. They must be released and repatriated without any delay at the end of hostilities. And these are the standards that should be followed within wartime. But unfortunately, it is not. Whether it's against two parties affiliated with war or two or more parties affiliated with war. But these standards are not followed. Now here's my big question that I was concerned with at the beginning of the presentation and the project as well. And it was reasons why the concept prisoners of wars should not exist. So the technique prisoners of wars is not so effective during war time. A soldier can start or create an attack by coming up with a strategy without the soldier being aware, in which the ones whom are portraying hospitality for the opponent soldier. It is awkward and most of all dangerous for both parties affiliated with the war. Thus, things could simply go wrong during war. For instance, the Iran-Iraq conflict, some prisoners of war were severely wounded and sick prisoners that have not been repatriated as required by the convention. Since the outbreak of the conflict between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Republic of Iraq, the highest authorities of both those states have several times confirmed their intention to honor their international obligations deriving from the Geneva Conventions. However, the international law was violated through the Geneva Conventions. These are some of the reasons why the concept prisoners of wars should not exist. Some parties break most of the rules, so why should the concept in the following the standards and guidelines of the Geneva Conventions within prisoners of wars exist? There is this notion of treating a prisoner with a certain hospitality. But how could another party do so when they are actually in war with the opponent's side? The concept treating the opponent's side as your own is dangerous during wartime. Thanks for listening. Again, this is Prisoners of War, and this is my project, and this will be it. Thank you.